Thank you all very much indeed for joining me. I really appreciate giving me your time, and looking forward to taking you through a little bit of Tanzania. So my name is John Rounds-Turner, and I'm the Sales and Marketing Director for Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda. I've looked through the list of attendees, and I think I've met a fair number of you, but for those of you I've yet to have the pleasure of meeting, I look forward to doing that one day. When I originally did this webinar, we were going to focus on the whole of Tanzania, but having sort of got through the presentation, I realized it would be far too long, and I know your time is incredibly valuable. So I'm really going to focus on northern Tanzania today, and then I think we're going to do a separate southern Tanzania presentation, of which you will of course be emailed about. So the first thing, I know it's not exactly sticking to the rules, but I just want to show you a few East Africa offers that we've got across the region. We've got an agent incentive, a $500 gift card for every booking to Kenya or Tanzania worth $10,000 or more. For Tanzania, that's for travel before the 30th of June, booked with the DMC. And for Kenya, that's travel before the end of next year, and that's booked through the DMC or through the Downers Grove office. I will be making sure this presentation is available to you all, so you don't need to scribble down furiously all the necessary notes. You will get a copy of this. So Tanzania, 50% off the accommodation for Azura Sulu and Sanctuary Sadani. So the Azura Sulu is in the southern part of Tanzania in the Sulu Game Reserve, a massive game reserve, absolutely enormous, with about 110,000 elephants. Really fantastic place. And then 3 nights at Sanctuary Sadani Safari Lodge, which is located right on the coast of mainland Tanzania, overlooking the Indian Ocean. And it's the only national park that it straddles on the Indian Ocean, and has 4 of the big 5. So actually quite a unique setting. Really not an offer I would suggest you take up with your first timers to East Africa, but certainly for people who've maybe done a safari or two in the past, then this is something quite unique and a little bit different that they may well enjoy. So until 15th of December, all accommodation and transport in Uganda is discounted, and the Uganda Wildlife Authority have discounted gorilla permits from $600 to $350 per person, and that's for the whole month of November 2014. So if you have a few people who are looking for something a little bit different in between now and the end of the year, then I think Uganda could suit. And then $1,500 per person between the 15th of October and the 15th of December in Kenya, and that's staying at the Fairmont Norfolk in Nairobi. 3 nights Larson's Camp in the northern part of Kenya in Samburu, which is a wonderful national park with the Waso Nero River running straight through it. You can see that on the left-hand side of the screen. Also, Samburu is a place I've never really gone there and not seen leopard, which is a nice claim to fame. And then ending up at 3 nights, it's Sanctuary Olanana in the Masai Mara, again located on the Mara River. Great viewing of hippos and, of course, all the Mara has to offer. Just a brief shout out about our brochures that we have out of our US office. They are all available for 2015. If you haven't got yours, please feel free to request them through the website, abercrombiekent.com. That's www.abercrombiekent.com. A little bit of bragging, if I may, seeing as we are talking about Tanzania. The Snows of Kilimanjaro, which is one of our programs on climbing Kilimanjaro, was on Good Morning, was on the Born to Explore TV program. You can still check out the link there, and I still think that's online. So that's a bit of a shout out for that. I will come on to our Kilimanjaro climbing operation a little bit later on in this presentation. So moving straight on. I will mention, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to type them into the questions part of your of the box on the, assuming it's on your right-hand side of your screen. I will get to questions at the end. If I don't get to your question, because there's so many, then we'll make sure everybody gets a personalized email with all the questions being answered. Okay, so as I said, we're going to focus on the northern part of Tanzania, just purely because of the size and scope, and I think we'll do a separate one covering Gombe, Mahali, Katavi, Ruaha, and the Sulu. A&K has offices in Arusha and also at the Ngorongoro crater. Our office at the crater is more of an operational office. It allows us to repair any vehicles if they need repairing, or dispatch vehicles if there's a breakdown in Serengeti, for example. It enables us to get a vehicle out there as soon as possible to really prevent any issues with any impact on the client safaris. I am very pleased to say that we do have breakdowns very, very few and far between. In fact, last year, for the whole of last year, we had 9 breakdowns, of which 4 of them the clients never even realized because we were able to change the car overnight. The peak travel seasons, December through March, which coincides very nicely with being chilly in the northern parts of the hemisphere, so North America, and then June to September. So you can split Tanzania straight into 2. So you've got what we call the Northern Circuit, which includes your iconic Serengetis, your Ngorongoro craters, Lake Manyara and Tarangire. And then you've got your Southern Circuit, which is a much, much bigger circuit, covering all the properties that we mentioned there. Gombe Stream National Park, Mahale Mountains, both of which have fantastic chimpanzees. They're both located right on the edge of Lake Tanganyika, which is a really unspoilt wilderness and a stunning, stunning part of the world. Then Katavi, Ruaha, and the Sulu. So that's your Southern Circuit. As I said, we'll focus on the Northern Circuit today. So this is a traditional circuit, and what I want to do is I want to just go break it down for you. So this is how a Northern Tanzania safari circuit looks like. And in each place, we will give you a sort of an idea of gold, silver, and bronze accommodation, just to try and put it into perspective for you, just to try and make it as easy as possible. So we'll start off with arrival in Kilimanjaro International Airport, which is just to the southeast, mainly east, of Arusha. A lot of people have daily flights in there. KLM are probably the most popular one. They have daily flight into Kilimanjaro. So as you can see then, overnight Arusha, which we will cover now, and then they go into Tarangire National Park, to Lake Manyara, Ngorongoro crater, and then into Serengeti. So the red arrows dictate that the clients can do this all on a driving safari in our 4-wheel drive Land Cruisers, and then they can fly back to Serengeti. Of course, there is still the option that people can do a flying safari between the various different national parks. So in Arusha, we've added a platinum level like Legendary Lodge because it's an amazing property. It's very small, very boutique, located sort of on the outskirts of Arusha, so you don't really get a sense of any of the hustle and bustle, and you really do feel like you're on safari already once you arrive there. Same for the Arusha Coffee Lodge, 30 units, again located just outside Arusha in a working coffee plantation, so you can still get a chance to see how the coffee beans are roasted. This is a nice little sort of excursion, city tour if you like. Aramera River Lodge, again a similar sort of concept to the Arusha Coffee Lodge, 21 rooms, another great property, again outside Arusha, so you don't have to worry about too much of the traffic or anything else within Arusha itself. Or the way we sort of categorize these properties is really based on service. Cost, of course, plays a part in that, and really how unique they are. There's a number of other options as well, so please don't think these are the only options that we have across the region. And then the last one is the Mount Meru Hotel. It's a very business-orientated hotel. It works very, very well for your one night, your arrival at Kilimanjaro, driving into Arusha, your one night there, and then the next morning you're up, breakfast, and then you're sort of out on your safari. This is the place that we stay at when we're heading down to Arusha, where we do our board meetings, etc. So it's actually a very, very nice hotel, but doesn't have the uniqueness or the boutiquiness, if you like, if that's such a word, of the other properties that I mentioned. So after Arusha, head down to Tarangire National Park. Now, Tarangire is a really understated, underused national park. I love it. It's got two swamps that run permanently through it that are fed with the waters off Mount Kilimanjaro. It's a 2-hour drive on a very good tarmac road, and that tarmac road takes you right the way to the gate. As I said, the water sources there come off Kilimanjaro, and that's mainly the Tarangire River, and that's year-round, so there's always game, especially in the dry season. What I love about the dry season is you get these massive herds of elephants, and they wade straight into the swamps, so they can drink and they can cool down, but they also feed. So you sort of see this swampy area, and it's just got elephants up to their necks. It's absolutely amazing. The other thing I love about Tarangire is the baobab tree. Now, the baobab tree is an ancient tree. A lot of the trees in Tarangire are 3,000 years old, and they are famous for spending 99% of their life without any trees. In fact, one of my daughters turned around to me the other day and said that they look like they've been planted upside down because they've got these sort of branches with no leaves on it, and then they flower for a very short period of time, and then stunning, absolutely stunning. And traditionally, long time ago, the poachers used to hide in the center of baobab trees because they were hollow, and it was a good way of them staying out of the dry and staying out of way of the rangers. And the last thing about Tarangire is you can see what we call the dry country antelope, which I will show you a little bit later on. So you can see a baobab tree that has got leaves on it. Massive girth of the tree trunk. It's absolutely enormous. Just want to go back and show. I'm just looking at my screen here. I don't think everybody got a chance to see that that picture. There we are. I think everybody can see that. I'm going to have to move a little bit slowly. My internet connection down here is not brilliant. So I'm just going to go through a couple of slides showing you what Tarangire has to offer. So this is Tarangire sort of towards the end of the dry season. There's still a bit of grass around. One of the small streams. But elephants is really what Tarangire is incredibly well known for. So the next slide is an image of one of the swamps. As you can see, the elephants are wading on into the swamp. We've actually got a few hippos on the foreground there, having a quick snooze in the sunshine. So this is a very indicative shot of Tarangire and what you and your clients can expect to see when they're in that part of the world. And then we talked about the dry antelopes. So the next slide is a picture of an oryx. Oryxes are indigenous to a lot of Africa. That's incredibly dry. So Namibia, for example, but also northern parts of Kenya and into Ethiopia. So what about in terms of properties? So we've put as a gold level is Sanctuary Swala, which is in the sort of southwestern part of the Tarangire National Park. And in fact, Tarangire doesn't have a huge number of properties, so you have really sort of have the feeling of having the whole national park to yourself. So on the slide here, you can see what I mean by these old baobab trees that are sort of looking like they've been planted upside down. This is a picture of Sanctuary Swala. On the left-hand side, you can see it's got an outdoor shower which overlooks a watering hole. Fantastic property. The food and service there are really very, very good indeed. We very rarely have people coming back not absolutely loving Sanctuary Swala. So on a silver level is Oliver's Camp, which is located on the other side of the swamp to Tarangire. Tented property, very small number of rooms, and again, it's a great property. Views almost overlooking the swamp. You don't actually have to go too far to see any of the animals in the swamp. And then the last property we've put as a bronze level is a Maramboi tented camp located just outside Tarangire National Park. But a great camp for people who want to be a bit sensible about budget. You can see the plains there. Game in Tarangire is not too bad. Elephants are the main attraction, but I've been there and I've seen leopards and I've seen lions. There can be tsetse fly problems when the rains come, so we do try and avoid that time of the year. So April, May, when Sanctuary Swala and Oliver's Camp, for example, are actually closed, and then certain parts of November. You can depend on getting showers in in November. So once clients have done their their Tarangire National Park sort of starter on their safari, then a short drive up to Lake Manyara. Quite often Lake Manyara is missed out, and if clients have slightly short of time, they can go straight from Tarangire into Ngorongoro Crater. Straightforward, it's an hour and a half. It's a very good road built by the Japanese, completed about 5 or 6 years ago and holding up incredibly well. So Lake Manyara is a very small national park, famous for tree climbing lions. It's sort of the only lake experience clients are going to get on their safari circuit if they just stick to the northern part of Tanzania. Lots of bird life. We can cycle through some villages. There's a place that I call the Banana City, just near Lake Manyara. You can buy a million different types of bananas. So the lake is an alkaline lake, so you get a lot of flamingos at certain times of the year. The game surrounding it is not bad at all. It's not brilliant, but we're building the experience up as we go through the circuit, as we end up in Serengeti. Tree climbing lions is always a great sight to see. The only other place in East Africa that you can regularly see tree climbing lions is in Ishasha, which is in Queen Elizabeth National Park in Uganda. So a great experience, and I thoroughly enjoy spending time watching these rather large animals climbing trees as if they were young and fit leopards. So I know it's taking time for these slides to load, so I will try and match my patter accordingly. So yes, the bird life in Tarangire as well in Lake Manyara, sorry, is absolutely exceptional. Excuse me. So on the property side of things, Lake Manyara Tree Lodge, great views over the escarpment, but it's sort of built in a forest, so not everybody gets a fantastic view. But they do have great accommodation. Highly recommend, if anybody can get clients to stay in Lake Manyara, they definitely should, especially if they have the time, and it's a must do. So our silver category is the Escarpment Luxury Lodge, which has also, again, all these properties have amazing views right over the escarpment. Now, the escarpment actually forms part of the Great Rift Valley, so that's another plus point for people to see. If clients aren't staying at Lake Manyara, then they will be able to see the escarpment as they're driving between Tarangire and Ngorongoro Crater. But also they have fantastic views of the escarpment and the various different lakes within the Great Rift Valley as they're flying across. And then the last sort of level of accommodation is the Lake Manyara Serena Safari Lodge, slightly bigger property than the others I just showed you. But again, they all have this fantastic view, and really the sort of differences are built around a sort of level of exclusivity as well as accommodation and service. So once clients have done their Lake Manyara portion, we end up at an iconic area of the Ngorongoro Crater. It's a very short drive. It's about 45 minutes to the main gate of the conservation area. So clients can stay at Lake Manyara and do Ngorongoro Crater quite simply. There are 4 permanent lodges, but we only use 3 of them on the crater rim itself. One of the properties is utterly dreadful, and I wouldn't recommend anybody to stay there. They also then have, believe it or not, a 75% non-refundable deposit to confirm the room. So we definitely don't use those. So you can either stay on the crater rim itself, or you stay in Karatu, which is about 30 minutes from the gate. And then from the gate, it's a further 30 minutes as you get down onto the crater floor. And this is where we generally include our Maasai village visits for our itineraries on the Northern Circuit. So the Ngorongoro Crater is as I said, an iconic part of the world. Huge amounts of wildlife in the bottom of the crater. I've been fortunate in 2 separate occasions to see the whole of the Big Five in 45 minutes, which is a little bit being spoilt, I know, but it's such a wonderful place to be. Lots of fresh water in the bottom of the crater, which is why, a lot of vegetation. It means that animals don't really have too many reasons to wander out. So lions, of course, you'll see plenty. And then if we're really lucky, we get to see the rhinos, and they're black rhinos as well, which are indigenous to this part of the world, rather than the white rhinos, which actually originated from southern Africa. And then the Maasai village experience. There are certain parts of the village that can be a little bit over-touristified, but we use a number of the villages that are located a little bit further away and don't quite get the same amount of traffic. Just so people are aware, Ngorongoro Crater has two roads. So you've got, on the one side, you've got the ascent and descent road, which can get a little bit busy of an evening as people coming out. And then on the other side of the crater, further away where Ngorongoro Sopa is, we have one ascent-descent road that's only used by the people staying in the Sanctuary Ngorongoro Crater Camp, which I'll show you in a second, and the Ngorongoro Sopa Lodge. Whereas on the other side of the crater, all of the other 3 main properties and anybody staying at Karatu would have to use separate roads to get down to the bottom of the crater. And as I said, it can get a little bit busy during the sort of peak rush hour, if you like, as people are heading down into the crater in the morning and out of the crater in the evening. So on a sort of gold standard is another iconic sort of image of northern Tanzania, and that's Ngorongoro Crater Lodge. The image on screen is something that And Beyond have been using for a number of years, so I just thought I'd add that in there. But you can see it's built right on the lodge itself. It is a fantastic property, as you'd imagine. It comes with a fantastic price tag, of course. But a fantastic alternative to that would be the Sanctuary Ngorongoro Crater Camp. Now, this is a camp that we used to use as a private mobile. So we would go in and set the camp up exclusively for clients on a sort of as and when basis. What we've done now to try and really lower the price point is set up the camp on a seasonal basis. So there'll be 12 tents set up in the peak season. We're fortunate enough with Sanctuary and A&K to be the only people allowed to camp on the crater rim itself. Everybody else has to move a little bit further away. It's a great campsite. As I said, it's on the other side of the crater rim itself, which I think is the better side purely because you get to see the sun setting, whereas on the other side where your crater lodge, you have to see the sun rising. And in the morning it can be incredibly misty, so people can miss that. And then on a bronze standard, we've got the other 2 properties, lodges there, and Ngorongoro Sopa, which I actually prefer, to be honest, to the Serena property. It's large, 97 rooms, it's got fantastic views, and it's great for people who want to stay on the crater rim itself, because there are a lot of people who say, no, I'm only going to go there once and I want to stay on the rim. As I said, it has its own ascent-descent road that it shares with the Sanctuary Ngorongoro Crater Camp, so there's far less traffic. And then the other properties, the Ngorongoro Serena, a few less rooms. I always think the building looks like it has some sort of disgusting skin disease, purely because of all the rocks and boulders that they've used to decorate the property. But they're both incredibly popular. I would personally choose the Sopa Lodge over the Serena Lodge because of location, but it takes a little bit longer to get there. So what I've done, so that's staying on the crater rim itself. So the next section of properties is staying at a place called Karatu. Now, Karatu is a village about 35 minutes out from the main gate. It's all beautiful farming land. and you'll see that there's a theme running through these properties that I'm going to show you. Great alternatives to the properties on the crater rim. I would, if I had a choice, I would stay in this Karatu area, and this would be my #1 choice. I would happily take the extra 45 minutes to an hour, 15 minutes to drive to the crater, to the crater floor, purely because you've got a lot of other activities here. There's horse riding. These are all of these properties are on working farms, and the scenery here is absolutely stunning. So the manor at Ngorongoro Crater, definitely one of my favorites. The service, the food. They've got all their units are built in sort of an old Dutch colonial style building, which I think is fantastic. My second choice would definitely be Gibbs Farm. Still a working farm. They grow huge amounts of their own produce, which I think is absolutely fantastic. They're very happy to show you around the farm, the kitchens, and they've got these great units, absolutely huge, again, right in the heart of farming country. And then moving on to the last property we have going to show you today is the farmhouse. Again, working farm. This is a slightly larger property. The decor inside not quite as luxurious as some of the others, but a great property nevertheless, especially for people who are trying to be sensible about budget. Not all of us has the clients as much as we would like to have the $3,000, $3,500 per room per night that the Crater Lodge charges. So if we do have clients that I call have what I call real money, as opposed to totally over the top money, then this is a fantastic option, and really the experience is not diminished too much at all. So once clients have done their Ngorongoro Crater bit, they end up in the Serengeti. The Serengeti is absolutely enormous. It's 10 times the size of the Masai Mara, just to really put it into perspective for you, or about 15,000 square miles. Four and a half hours on a dirt road, but that road can vary in condition depending upon the season. Once the rains come, the road can get a little bit bumpy. But then this is dependent upon where the clients are going. And where the clients are going really depends depends on the time of the year and with the animals. So what we try and do is we try and get clients to stay as close to the migration as possible. Of course, that makes utter sense. But if there's no availability, and this does happen, especially in the southern part of Tanzania, availability can be incredibly difficult to get. Then central Serengeti is always a great option. There's lots of permanent water around the whole area, so you're going to see great game. The visit to Olduvai Gorge is a possible good halfway point for people to see, and they can have lunch there. Olduvai Gorge is where the Leakey family found remains of the oldest human skeleton. It's a good halfway point. I mean, I wouldn't say you need to go to Tanzania and you have to stay there. Sorry, you have to see that. But it's interesting to look at. So a migration map. Those of you who I've seen in the past will have seen me touting this around for many a year, and it's still worth mentioning now. The bottom here, January, February, March, is one of the key times, because this is where we have 500,000 wildebeest calves born every year. So the migration is 2 million animals strong, about 1.3 million wildebeest and about 700,000 zebra. So location is a fundamental part of choosing the right property for clients. And I would sort of base any ideas on properties around this sort of the wildebeest migration. So any sort of time between end of June, July, right the way through to October, then that northern part of Serengeti is key. You can see the animals are always bouncing backwards and forwards between the Mara and the Serengeti, really depending on the rainfall. And rainfall can be incredibly localized within this ecosystem. So you can rain in one place and 15 miles away, there's nothing at all. And the wildebeest sense this, and they're able to follow where the best and freshest grazing is. So it's an annual event, constantly moving, but there are key times that we need to be a little bit careful of and a little bit sensible. April, May in the western corridor, it does rain quite heavily during that time, so the roads are not in great condition. Same with November, but the other times of the year are absolutely perfect. I just like this image, just to remind people that we do get some great big cat sightings in Serengeti. Ballooning is also available in the northern and central parts of Serengeti, which is fantastic as well. A great experience. I've seen leopard off the back of a balloon, and it's just amazing to see. They're really absolutely stunning. Elephants, nice herds of elephants, but also I like this image because it really shows you of what the Serengeti is, and it's just wide open plains. In fact, Serengeti means endless place in Ma, the language of the Maasai. So this image was actually taken near the Noru Koppies, which are those little rock formations found scattered throughout sort of central and northern part of Serengeti. A lot of rhinos here, a lot of leopard sightings here as well. But Tanzania, Serengeti, sorry, has also been incredibly well known for its cheetah research, especially in the southern part and also the eastern part of Serengeti. So cheetah research there has been going on there for 20 odd years. So wildebeest migration, I just wanted to show you a couple of images just to refresh your memory of what it's like. So here we have some of the plains of northern Tanzania, of northern Serengeti, absolutely teeming with wildebeest. Lest we forget, the humble zebra is also a huge, huge part of that. And really they act as the forerunners for the wildebeest, because they will generally go slightly ahead of the wildebeest, because they can eat grass that's actually quite long, whereas the wildebeest do eat longer grass, but they sort of prefer it a little bit shorter. But the zebras can eat grass, you know, it's sort of head height, if you like. So they really are the forerunners for the wildebeest migration. So heading off into the various different camps that we've got in Serengeti. Now Serengeti is huge. There are a lot of camps there. Not that it's overcrowded in any way, shape or form. But what I've done is I've sort of broken the gold, silver and bronze categories down to northern, and then a separate section of central, and then ending up in the south, just to try and put everything into perspective for everybody. So the Singita properties, you know, they've got their Grumeti Reserve, 400,000 hectares to the west of Serengeti. So they've got their 3 properties there that are becoming incredibly well known. But they've branched out, and they've got the Mara River property, which is located almost on the Kenya border. It's about 1.5 miles from the Kenya border. It's in the far north of Serengeti. Only 6 units and beautifully done. I mean, as you would imagine, being a Singita, I mean, it's all the bells and whistles and everything that you can imagine. I'm not 100% sure how they keep everything so white, but that's really not something that I have to concern myself with. I just have to enjoy it when I'm there. So that'll be a gold/platinum level. So another property that I really enjoy in that northern part of Serengeti is Lamala Kuria Hills. It's been open now for about a year, I think, and they've done incredibly well. Got some fantastic reviews. Each property has its own sort of plunge pool, which is very cleverly done, because you're not really allowed to dig deep down. So they've built the plunge pools on the decks, so they don't have to change too much of the landscape at all, which is fantastic. And then our sort of silver property is the Serengeti Bush Tops. I mean, this property could be a gold level, because it's a fantastic property as well, built on stilts, very, very large tents, 14 rooms, located again in that northern part of Serengeti. Now, I haven't put any bronze level in, because northern Serengeti really doesn't have anything that would be suitable for the North or South American market. There's some properties there that are suitable for Europeans, you know, your German, your French clients, but I really don't think for the North Americans and the South Americans that it's actually that suitable at all. So again, a silver level, Lamai Serengeti in the northern part of Serengeti. What I love about this property is the views. So I chose this slide just to highlight one of the rooms, but I just wanted to show you that sort of view, and that's an iconic part, you know, iconic image that people have in their mind when they in Tanzania. Is it's just endless, constantly. You never feel like you'll ever get to the end, and you actually do get that sense when you're driving as well. The sense and scale of Serengeti is absolutely enormous. So moving down into the central part. Now, as I said earlier, central part of Serengeti is great for year-round game viewing. There's lots of fresh water in the area, which means that lots of game are going to be in that area. Property that I really enjoy is the Pioneer Camp, the Serengeti Pioneer Camp. It's sort of south central, if you like. Only 10 units. They've done a very nice job with the decor inside. Really no complaints from me whatsoever. We also have the Serengeti Four Seasons, completely different. It's 72 units, so it's actually quite large. But I think it's important we highlight this to clients. There are people out there who don't want to do the, inverted commas, tenting all the time. So it's a great way of people to end their safari at Serengeti Four Seasons. They can, play billiards. I think they've got a billiards table in the basement. They've got a cigar and they've got a wine cellar, satellite television and air conditioning. So you can go off on your game drives and come back and put CNN on or whatever else. Yes, I mean, we don't all necessarily have to agree with that, but that's certainly something that we need to bear in mind because there are clients who do have those requests. On a silver level, we have Namiri Plains, which is in the eastern part of Serengeti. Now, that eastern part of Serengeti was, for 20 years, designated as no properties and no game drives because they were doing it for a lot of cheetah conservation and cheetah research. And in July this year, they opened up that area. And Namiri Plains, which is part of the Acilia group, they've been tasked with a lot of the conservation, but they're also been allowed to build this one small little tented camp with 6 units. Game driving in that area is fantastic, and you can actually tell that that area has really had not a huge amount of tourist traffic. They've got a lot of skittish game, so it's wildlife that's not that used to seeing vehicles. So they're sort of a little bit wary and a little bit conscious of the vehicles around them, which I think is fantastic because that's what it's always been like. 100 years ago, that's what the Serengeti was like. They're not used to having people in that part of the world, which I think is fantastic. And then just to highlight a sort of a bronze level is the Serengeti Serena with these rather interesting dome-like rooms. They have the suites on top and then they have the two rooms underneath. So they have 64 rooms. And this is, again, central Serengeti. So those are the properties in central, and there's a lot of different properties, and more are being built at the time. And I'm not saying that any of these properties are the only ones that they are available, but these are ones that we as A&K know and enjoy and have a great relationship with. But if clients are looking for other things, then please do let us know. We can create pretty much anything. Okay, so down in the south of Serengeti, which is a key time for January, February, March, as I mentioned with the wildebeest migration. So Mwiba Lodge, very similar to your Singita Sasakwa, one of those amazing properties that the Grumeti have, that Singita have in the Grumeti. Located in its own little personal 51-acre conservation area that used to be under a hunting concession, but it's now been turned over purely to conservation. 8 rooms, amazing views, wildebeest migration sort of almost coming underneath your room as you wake up in the morning. Silver, Sanctuary Kusini. This is one of the best places to be in January, February, March. We're sort of taking bookings, or Sanctuary taking bookings for January, February, March 2016 now. Just to give you an example of how in demand this property is. Great location. It's more of a wilderness style camp to the sort of luxuriousness of Sanctuary Swala, but again, fantastic location. Really, really highly recommend that as a location. And then Sanctuary have their Serengeti migration camp. As I mentioned, the Ngorongoro crater used to have camping on a as needs basis. Same with within the Serengeti. So what Sanctuary have done is they've created a seasonal camp that will follow the migration through south central Serengeti, northern Serengeti. So it'll move on a 2-3 monthly basis. Again, it'll have 12 units. So relatively small. This is an example of one of the camps that they will set up. So it's Egyptian cotton sheets, it's rugs on the floor, it's your mosquito net, it's your solar lighting. So these camps are incredibly eco in terms of they don't use any generators, or they use some generators, but a lot of it's solar powered. And this is sort of another view, an example of what clients can get. So a number of different seasonal camp options, and this is one of them. So once they've done their Serengeti bit, they can end up taking a 1.5-hour flight to Arusha. It does get a bit bumpy in the afternoons, purely because it's flying over a lot of crater lakes, a lot of the escarpment, so it can get a little bit bumpy, but fantastic views, really absolutely stunning views. So what next? What do they do at the end of a safari? Couple of options. Sudani National Park is a great option. As I said at the very beginning, this is where the Azora Sulu and Sudani Safari Lodge have got together for a great special offer. So this is where Sudani is located, as you can see, right on the Tanzanian mainland, but opposite Zanzibar, so overlooking the Indian Ocean. 2 properties that Sanctuary have in that area. The first is the Safari Lodge, which is, as I said, on the beach, but you've got the national park behind it. We have seen lions on the beach as well, which I think is a fantastic image to have, and incredibly unique in our part of the world. Relatively simple design. This is great for people to relax, unwind, spend some time going through the pictures that they've taken, relieve the stories that they heard, that they saw and talked about on their safari. So great opportunity to sort of relax, unwind before they head back home. And then further upstream on the Wami River, which is about a 1.5 miles away from the Safari Lodge, is the Sudani River Lodge. Slightly more luxurious property than the Safari Lodge. Great options to have here. There's a lot of mangrove swamps in the area, so they can go out on boats on the lake. And also if they're staying at River Lodge or Safari Lodge, they can take a dhow trip across to Zanzibar itself. And have a little stone town tour of Zanzibar, which is fantastic. So that's a whole day trip. While we're here, I just want to really mention about the Kilimanjaro climbing operation that we have in Tanzania, because it is world class. It is absolutely fantastic. We're very, very proud of it, and I think a lot of people are still unaware of just how impressive our Kilimanjaro climbing operation is. We generally use the Machame route, which is the least frequented route of the 6 on Kilimanjaro. The main one is the Marangu route. It's a little bit shorter, but it's nicknamed is the Coca-Cola route. Just so everybody's aware, 30,000 people attempt to climb Mount Kilimanjaro every single year. We provide 3.5 hot meals every single day. When you're up at 17,000 feet, there is nothing like a warm bed and hot food. And then all our porters undergo incredibly stringent emergency training. It's never a good time to have any issues anywhere in East Africa. And the worst place you could possibly have any problems is on Mount Kilimanjaro. So our porters are all trained in the emergency evacuation, and our guides are absolutely top-notch on what needs to be done and how to avoid it more than anything else. The best thing to do with an emergency is actually to avoid it. And we're very proud to have a 97% success rate of getting people to the summit and, of course, back down. Just to put that into perspective, the average for everybody else is between 55 and 65% success rate. A number of reasons why we have that. 3.5 hot meals a day, of course, is part of that. Quality of equipment. This is one of our mess tents. We take a full mess tent up there. What other companies do is they'll take a small mess tent that you can eat on a rotational basis, and then that mess tent becomes the porter's overnight accommodation. We take our own accommodation for our porters, so they can go to bed whenever they want, rather than having to wait for clients to get out of the mess area. Please don't think this image is of anybody who's actually in an emergency situation. This is part of our training. As you can see, the training doesn't take place at lower altitude. It takes place on the mountain. Porters need to know what they're doing on the mountain itself. Guiding is vital anywhere in East Africa, or anywhere in, on safari, in fact, but none more so than on Kilimanjaro. So these are Dismas and Orca, our two senior guides. They've summited Kilimanjaro, I think it's about 100 and something times between them. They're both incredibly knowledgeable. Again, you know, we've got people, our guides are actually often helping other clients, guides who have never summited Kilimanjaro. So they're taking, you know, they happen to explain health and safety tips to other people who've who are guiding other groups. So they're fantastic guides, and we're very, very proud of them. We have two different levels. We have the VIP level and the luxury level. Just to break it down into sort of bits and pieces, the VIP, we take 6+, depending on how many people in the group, but more than 6 porters per person, and that's because they're carrying more food, bigger tents, their own tents, and we're also part of the Porters Welfare Association, and we make sure the porters do not carry anything more than 44 pounds on their backs, whereas a lot of other companies will load their porters up just because they save money on that. So you can see the differences between there. Please don't underestimate the value of sleeping on a cot on Kilimanjaro. It's not quite like the same as sleeping on the floor. You've got to be well rested when you're climbing the mountain. And also, we take a portable toilet. Not everybody does that. They have to share the facilities, which are not always of the highest standard. So we take our own facilities up the mountain. And just an image of the highest point in Africa, something that we can all strive to. And just in case you don't really believe that we can do this, this is proof enough. This is a fan trip we did for travel agents out of North America and Mexico in 2011, and they all made it to the summit. If that's not proof of our abilities, I don't know what is. And then I wanted to end with Zanzibar. Very, very quickly. Zanzibar is a couple of hours from Arusha. There's a lot of different things on Zanzibar. Spice tour through Stone Town, the Blue Safari, which is whale watching and turtle watching, sunset cruises, and the night food market in Stone Town, which happens every single day and has some amazing seafood. Absolutely stunning. Fresh as fresh can be. I didn't want to spend too much time on properties now, so if anybody has their questions, I'll be winding up shortly. You'll all be pleased to hear. But if anybody has any questions, please type them in now, and I will get to them in a couple of minutes. My absolute favorite property, and I will be taking my family to Baraza this December, which I'm very delighted to say. They've got fantastic property. What I love about Baraza, apart from the rooms, because they're all individual, they'll have their own plunge pools, the beds are so comfortable. What I love is they're so thoughtful about their public areas, and they actually have 3 different restaurants that they rotate around on a daily basis. So you always feel like you're eating in a different resort, which I think is fantastic. Right on the northern part of Zanzibar, Ras Nungwi, it's very well known, it's been around for a while. Great property. And then the Eskzali, relatively new, again in the northern part of Zanzibar, quite large. No real beach there for this property. So if you do have clients going to Zanzibar, be a bit careful. Just to put it into perspective, there are 257 properties on Zanzibar. 65% of them cater primarily for Italian tourists, and not all of them have the picture postcard white sandy beaches that people are expecting from Zanzibar. So please do let us know if you've got a Zanzibar option for clients. We are able to help you out. There is a lot of not very nice properties out there, and we do regular fan trips, so we are well aware of them. Now, it's almost done for me to stop talking, so I am going to get to questions. If anybody has questions, please type them in now. Very quickly, first question, what activities are there on Zanzibar? There's quite a lot to do. There's a lot of shopping in Stone Town. They can do the spice tour. Zanzibar has really become known as a sort of trading point for spices. They grow a lot on the island itself, but they also sort of act as a trading post. And I think that's a bit of a leftover from the days when Zanzibar was one of the major slave trading ports. In fact, they used to have a massive slave auction in Stone Town, and as part of your Stone Town tour, you can still see the areas they have the auctions. It's sort of quite sobering, really, because they have these huge metal rings that are cemented into the stonework around these sort of open areas. Yeah, it's interesting, but also a little bit harrowing in certain respects. Then there's what we call the blue safari, which is whale watching. So you go out on a dhow, you do the whale watching. Don't always see the whales, but it's a fantastic trip out there, especially if you take a few cold drinks with you. Have a great time. And then then there's, I didn't write it on the slide, but there's also the Zanzibar red colobus monkey. It's the only place in the world that this monkey is found. And what's special about the colobus is they actually only have 4 fingers. They don't have an opposable thumb. So an interesting little factoid. And they can walk through that area, and they can sort of combine that with where some of the spices are grown. They grow a lot of cloves in Zanzibar. I hope that's answered the question. Right, questions coming in thick and fast. Let's go. How long is the recommended length for a safari? Well, if you're using AEK, 6 weeks. But in all seriousness, it depends on the clients. I would like to say a minimum of 8 nights, 9 nights, bearing in mind they'll have definitely 1 night in Arusha when they arrive, purely because the flight network that most flights arrive of an evening. So into Arusha, and then you can do 2 nights Tarangire, 2 nights Ngorongoro Crater. You really need to do 3 nights Serengeti if at all possible. So that's your 8 nights as a minimum. I find a lot of people from North America and South America are going to want to combine with Kenya or Uganda as well. So that, of course, would increase the length of time. But I would say a minimum of 8 nights, but 9, 10 is a little bit better. Spend a little bit more time on in sort of iconic areas. Your Ngorongoro Crater, and your Serengeti. Tsetse flies. What do you tell them to advise them on the time of travel to minimize tsetse flies? Avoid the rainy seasons, which is April, May, which most properties in Tarangire are closed anyway, and then parts of November. But I would say November is low season. You can be lucky, you can get there and there's no tsetse flies at all. It really depends on the rains. The best piece of advice I could tell you is if you wear lighter clothing. Tsetse flies seem to be attracted to dark blue and black primarily, so wear lighter clothing if you can. What's the best period to visit Lake Manyara? Lake Manyara is a pretty decent destination year-round, but for me, in the drier times, so January, February, March, June, July, August, September can get a bit of rain, but we're not talking huge amounts, because as it dries, the lake level drops and the pH of the lake gets much more alkaline, which attracts which creates an algae which attracts the flamingos. So I would say that's probably the best time to visit Lake Manyara. Weber Lodge, also by the Kopi Rocks, like Kusini, very, very similar. Not on the same Kopi at all, but they're in similar areas. They're not in similar areas at all because it's actually quite a big distance between them. But they have similar ideas, that they have these sort of amazing views. Whereas the Kusini is located on a Kopi, which is sort of a small area of rocks, whereas Weber is located on more of an escarpment, so it's much higher up. I hope that answers your question. I've been asked here a question about air. We, on the DMC side, we don't, but we do have, we do contract air through our Downers Grove office. And I will happily, if you go through our website or, yeah, no, go through the website is probably the best thing, to do. To contact them. If you want any other contact details, your sales director, or send me a private message and I will happily pass you over to somebody else. I've been asked a question about Ebola, which I was surprised it's taken this long to come about. At the moment, Kenya, Tanzania have no Ebola cases whatsoever. There's a lot of options being put in place, a lot of things being put in place at the airports to prevent anybody coming in with Ebola. They're screening everybody with temperatures, like similar to the Far East they did with SARS. So they're remotely screening people for body temperature. The good thing we have within East Africa is it's not a destination that West Africans travel to. They generally fly through Europe. So we actually don't have too much contact with West Africans. Look, Ebola is a big issue at the moment, and it's causing a lot of grief for a lot of people. I think we're in a lucky situation where we don't have Ebola cases at the moment, and I know certain parts of Europe and unfortunately the US does as well. So I'm happy to talk to clients if they have any concerns. I'm happy to talk to clients. I live here. I've got 3 young kids that are all under 6 years old. If there was any concerns for their safety, then of course I wouldn't be here. But I am. I've been asked a question about the game viewing around Weber. It is actually very good. It's not just around January, February, March, where it's fantastic, but other parts of the year. They do have some fresh water, which of course means that they're always going to have attract animals. And I think what I like about it is purely because it was an old hunting concession. So a lot of the game in other parts of that area have all moved into the conservancy because they're safe there. So game viewing is actually pretty decent in Weber as well. So yeah. Somebody's asked about a map of the migration pattern and the properties combined. We will get that to you. I've been asked, are there any packages available in December? Of course, absolutely. We can create anything you want. If you're looking for a group tour, then our USA office on www.abercrombiekent.com has a lot of our brochure series, and they do have some of their tours for December. So yes, December is a tricky one. I would sort of the first half of December is considered low season, if you like, which I actually like because you sort of seem to get the animals a little bit more to yourself rather than sharing them with other people. There is a small opportunity of rain, but you know when the rain comes, it doesn't come like the Indian monsoon. It rains, it keeps the dust down, it sort of gets the grass nice and fresh. So I like that. So yes, for me, December is a good time. January, February, March, the prices in Tanzania go crazy. So December is a great sort of shoulder time to get the most out of safari. Excuse me. I think that's it for questions. But if you do have any more questions, please type them in now. I'm a bit conscious of hogging so much of your very valuable time. So do please let me know if anybody has any questions at all. And as I said, we're making the presentation available to you, and we will have to do another presentation covering Southern Africa. Not Southern Africa. What am I talking about? Southern Tanzania. So our Salu and Ruaha. June to September, still a good time to travel. June to September. Yes, no, June to September is a fantastic time. I would stick to the northern part of Serengeti at that time because the migration is bouncing between Kenya and Tanzania. So definitely, yes, it's peak season. Getting space in July next year is already a struggle. There are properties also taking bookings for 2016. So June, July, August, September is peak season, same as January, February, March. So yes, a fantastic time. Does the migration within Serengeti span several weeks? Technically, no. It actually spans several months. because it's moving constantly between the sort of northern Serengeti down the eastern side, through the south, and then back up again through the western side. It's there for 9 months of the year, at least. So plan the time. When do the clients want to travel? Bearing in mind the key times, January, February, March in the southern Serengeti, and then June, July, August, September, October in the northern part of Serengeti. Yes, March would be close to the crater, but also it never really gets as far as going into the crater. So you don't have herds of wildebeest going through the crater. You get a few, but not the thousands and hundreds of thousands that you would see around Sanctuary Kusini at that time. We need to be a bit careful. End of March, what we call the grass rains do come in, but as I said, the rains come in and it sort of keeps the dust down and really makes things very, very green. I mean, it's stunning. It can be as green as certain parts of Europe as at all. Any more questions? If that's it, then have a very, very good day. Have a very productive day. And I would look forward to talking to you again. We've got another one which is focusing on Kenya. And, we've got another series of webinars based on product across East Africa and also updates on East Africa. So if there's anything that you feel that you need me to do, or you want a specific presentation for your team, then please give us a shout. We're always happy to accommodate. If there's anything else, please type in any questions you've got. If not, that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much. I've been talking for well over an hour, so I really appreciate all your time and patience with me. And if there is anything else, please, you can send me an email. I'm typing my email into the chat box now. It is jrturner@abercrombiekent.co.ke. I'll make sure I spelled that right, because that would be embarrassing. So if there's any emails, anybody wants to send anything to me, please give me a shout. Very happy to answer. There's a couple of people I will get back to on some slightly more specific questions. And look, guys, we look forward to seeing you, but also your clients in Tanzania in the future. If that's it, thank you all very much indeed. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we will hopefully catch up face-to-face at some point in the future. Thank you.